Some people call us weekend warriors. Maybe it's because our contracts stipulate we show up 1 weekend a month for a unit training assembly. Maybe it's because we go back to our civilian jobs as doctors, teachers, firefighters. Maybe we do, but we know the mission doesn't stop come 1600 Sunday night. We're airmen. We fly, fight, and win. We're sentries. We're avengers. We defend our country with our lives. We're wingmen. We're leaders. And yeah, we are warriors. So call us whatever you want, but just know,
we will never leave an airman behind.
we will never falter. We will not fail. Reservists, assemble.
Hey, welcome to the September UTA. We're glad to have you here, whether you're here personally or virtually. We appreciate you taking your time. Your time is very valuable to us, so we tried to make this as efficient as possible and try to put videos together so you can watch this. Commanders can determine when you want to watch this commander's call over the weekend here. So thanks again for your time. Hey, Chief and I wanted to welcome home all of our deployers. As you know, one of my priorities for the mobility wing is to deploy combat-ready airmen, and we continue to do that through this COVID pandemic with 14 days of ROM, restriction of movement up front, now 14 days of ROM at the back, and I tell you, when we have had been on phone calls and VTCs with General Scobie Scobie's mentioned several times when he's walking around the Pentagon of the different commanders that have come up to him and expressed praise and kudos for the reserves for being flexible, for just getting the job done and doing it. So a lot of our folks from this wing, the Freedom Wing, are part of that. So thank you. We welcome you back. We're glad to have you. I hope you're reintegrating back into your family life and your friends. I know it's a challenge, but we have some great people in the Freedom Wing. I know, Chief and I know that the Yellow Ribbon program has kind of been placed on hiatus right now as we go through this. We do know that there are some discussions about doing kind of a hybrid Yellow Ribbon, both some in person and then some virtual information. So more information will be coming out for that. And where could they find out information about that, Chief?
Sir, it's so funny that you mentioned that. Do you even app? This is something new to the Freedom Wing. So if you haven't downloaded the new 514 Air Mobility Wing app, you can download it right now. Sound of Freedom.
Sound of Freedom.
Right there. Sound of Freedom.
Sound of Freedom.
So again, you can download the 514 Air Mobility Wing app both on iPhones and Android.
So one of the things we also wanted to do was to give you the status of the base. So as we sit today, HPCon, or Health Protection Condition of Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst, is HPCon Charlie. So we're still in a restricted movement, and still it's essential, mission essential personnel only at this point. However, they're looking at transitioning to a Bravo at some point here soon. So we'll get information again on our app. We'll get information about that as it comes forward. But until that happens, it's the same ROE that we've been operating under for the last several months. We're checking your temperature, running doing the QR code with running the questionnaire, those kinds of things. So we're just going to continue to be smart about it. We've had several great UTAs with, I don't think, a single case of COVID that have come directly from the UTAs. So that is awesome. That tells me everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. So remarkably, I guess because of the COVID restrictions that have been in place and some of the exercises that have been canceled and limited duty, we're in shape to close out this fiscal year in a very strong financial position. So we've been able to spread the wealth a little bit to make sure that we're putting people on RPA as necessary to get things done. Unfortunately, as we go into FY21, it looks like we're going to be on a continuing resolution, at least through the first quarter. But I don't want that to scare people. I just want them to understand what are some of our restrictions, right? We can't start new things, but we're gonna continue to operate as we've been operating here in the past several months. Keep in mind, we still have. Let's go by there. Keep in mind, we still have UEI that is planned in February. So if you are managing one of those programs or processes to keep us in AFI compliance, that is a priority, along with taking care of our deployers. That is a priority. So plan your AT accordingly. If you need additional duty to perform to get your programs up to speed or to continue with those programs, okay, go through your leadership, and we're going to see what we can do to make that happen. Yep, that's all I want. Chief, anything else you want to add?
So I just want to again, sir, thank our redeployers. For those, we've had quite a bit of folks that have deployed this past calendar year. So thank you. It's what we train for, right? So we train on the UTAs and annual tour to actually then deploy and exercise our AFSC skills. So thank you so much. We appreciate it, and welcome home.
As you've heard me say many times before, you're part of that 1% that wears the uniform, but our redeployers are even in a smaller group that has deployed in their nation's cloth and wear the uniform. So thank you for that. Thank your families, and have a great UTA.
Hello, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Wes Miller, and I'm the Staff Judge Advocate for the 514th Air Mobility Wing. Today I'm here to speak with you about political activities for military members. As we're fast approaching the 2020 election season, this briefing is intended to serve as a reminder of the rules we all must keep in mind as military members. You're strongly encouraged to review Air Force Instruction 51-508 and DoD Instruction 1325.06, both of which set out the rules for political activities by military members in more detail. The first slide here is just intended to give you a general idea of the rules for military members. When you're in a military status, you are not permitted to engage in any partisan political activity. And in a little bit, we'll see some slides with some examples of what partisan political activity is. When you are not in a military status, you still must avoid any appearance or inference that your activities are in any way an endorsement by the Air Force or the Department of Defense. And of course, when you're participating in any political event or activity, you must not wear the uniform. The next slide here is a list of some things that you can do as military members in a military status. Everyone is encouraged to vote and encourage others to vote. You may express a personal opinion on political candidates and issues, but not as a representative of the Air Force. You may make monetary contributions to a political organization or political committee. You may attend political meetings or rallies as a spectator when not in uniform. You may join a political club and attend its meetings when not in uniform. The next slide has some general rules about social media. You may express your personal views on public issues or political candidates. You may friend, like, follow articles on social media pages related to political groups or candidates. But the one thing that you need to keep in mind is that if you have pictures of yourself in uniform, if you have references on your social media page to you being a military member, you may be required to put a disclaimer on there to say that your opinions don't represent the United States Air Force or the Department of Defense. Now, the next couple slides are some of the prohibitions, things you're not allowed to do when you're in a military status. You're not permitted to participate in any partisan political fundraising activities or solicit political contributions. You cannot participate in partisan political campaigns or conventions or make public speeches in the course of such activity. You cannot speak to a partisan political gathering to promote a partisan political party or candidate. You may not participate in any radio, television, or other program or group discussion as an advocate of a partisan political activity or candidate. and you may not distribute partisan political literature. Please keep in mind that this list is not all-inclusive. I've just taken some of the points that I thought were more relevant to this audience and put them in the slides. Again, please look at AFI 51-508 for a complete list. And the next slide of just some additional prohibitions. You cannot march or ride in partisan political parades when you're in a military status. Participate in an organized effort to transport voters to the polls if it's organized or associated with a partisan political candidate or party. You cannot display large political signs, banners, or posters on your vehicle. And you may not use contemptuous words against the President, Vice President, Congress, Secretary of Defense, and Secretary of a military department, including the Secretary of Homeland Security or the governor or legislature of any state. And this concludes my presentation. Again, you're strongly encouraged to review Air Force Instruction 51-508 and DoD Instruction 1325.06, where you can view these rules in more detail, and I appreciate your attention today. Thank you.
Hey there, Master Sergeant Gallela here with a quick message about Opsec. I'm going to start with a video.
Hello there! I know sometimes you want to say something so much you feel you should shout it from the mountaintops. Or if you don't like to shout, you post information on the internet. Things such as troop movements, training procedures, and security vulnerabilities. And once you do that, you might as well be telling the whole world. Hey, Jebediah! Hey, Frank! You're talking about Opsec? Sure am, Frank! That's great, Jebediah! I know! You tell them that posting sensitive information on social networking sites is like shouting your intentions to the whole world, including the enemy. Sure did! Oh! Anything else to tell them? Yeah. Practice Opsec and leave the shouting to us.
Seriously, Opsec hasn't just remained a serious subject for us. It has gotten more and more serious as time has gone on. An Al-Qaeda training manual, it showed us that 80% of the information that they gather, it comes from unclassified materials. Not just one source shows them everything. They gather little bits of information from different places and they put it together to figure out that who and that when and that where and that how. And you know they're looking at our social media and our family social media. One spouse posts that their partner is going to Afghanistan soon, and a co-worker of that spouse, they have a picture where you can see their unit patch, and a family member of that co-worker posts that their spouse is upset about this or that problem with their equipment. None of those individual posts on their own would be enough for the enemy, but as they put them together, they're going to know the when and the where and the how and a potential weakness, and that comes together for bad news for our fellow airmen. Now, what can we do to best prevent these kinds of issues? Well, that OPSEC training that we are required to do, that's got great information in it, so you should definitely check it out, not just because it's a requirement, but because we want to make sure that we can be safe and our fellow airmen can be safe. Find out how your unit is going to be taking care of that training if they're not going to be having you do it in ADLS. I am going to give a shout out to that ADLS training though. It can be accomplished in about an hour, so you can knock it off real quick. So, and again, let's protect our fellow airmen. And let's not shout our sensitive information to the enemy, all right? I'll see you around base.
Hello, Freedom Wing. I am Senior Master Sergeant John Fielding from the Wing Inspector General's Office. For those of you who are not familiar with the IG office, there are two sections. There's the IGQ, which handles complaints and resolutions, and the IGI, the inspection section, where I work, which handles compliance. As we're all aware, in the not-too-distant future, we'll be having a Unit Effectiveness Inspection, commonly known as a UEI. I want to touch base with everyone, and the program managers in particular, and talk about MIG-T. Program managers need to ensure that all communicators are actively being worked. I recommend all personnel who have been assigned checklists go in monthly to validate and update checklists as required. If there are any open observations, please ensure all required corrective actions are being taken so the observations can be closed out. If you are unable to close out any observation and meet the suspense timeline, please extend the suspense for a minimum of 90 days. For all completed checklists, ensure they're saved and locked for validation. For the self-assessment program managers, please ensure you go into CIMT at least monthly to update and validate all information. As we move forward, AFRC has already begun looking into our programs. I've reached out to a number of you requesting documents which AFRC has asked for so they can go in and further look into our programs. Please get those items to me as soon as possible, as we are rapidly approaching the 150-day timeline. If you have any questions or concerns and cannot provide this information, please contact this office so that we can give further guidance. With that being said, let's have a successful UEI, fly, fight, and win.
No.
Do you app?
Do I app?
Do you app?
Yes.
All right.
Hey folks, I just wanted to explain some of the different acronyms that you may have been hearing and kind of piece them all together of some of the reasons why, for one, that we don't have any building, we're not using building on base during the UTAs. So some of the acronyms you might have heard, ROM, restriction of movement, so it's a way to control people's movement to reduce the risk that they might get the COVID before they deploy, all right? So right now they're making people do a 14-day ROM before they deploy, and depending on the individual or what the line remarks are, they may be doing it at their home of record, or they may be doing it at what they call these AI, aggregate installation. All right, so this aggregate installation, there's several of them identified. I think there's 5 that have been identified, where they bring people to those installations for the 14 days of quarantine, or the ROM, if you will. All right, so JBMDL has been identified as one of those. So aggregate installation personnel only, they try to keep them sequestered in this area, and they can run, get outside and do some physical fitness and try to keep prepared to get ready to deploy. So that's some of the reasons why that we don't have the building, access to the building on base, because they're using it for this aggregate installation mission. So one of the other things that has changed here recently is the 14 days of ROM at the post-deployment. All right, so when you get back, we will more than likely, what we've been doing here lately is sending people to their homes of record, allowing them to do 14 days of ROM at their home of record, and then we finish the cycle for their deployment. So all the orders have been adjusted, or we're catching up with all the orders to be adjusted before pre-deployment and post-deployment, so that all that is covered, and inclusive of leave and R&R time and all that. So there's lots of things happening as we go through this new COVID world, but I just wanted to kind of piece some of those things together for you with the latest guidance that we have.
Yo,
What's up, man?
CBTs.
Yeah, man. Hey, do you app?
I'm about to right now.
All right, man.
Hey Freedom Wing, want to know what's the latest on fitness? Go ahead and look on the 514th AMW app and go to fitness. It'll give you the latest guidance. If you're not quite sure what's going on, you can also look at the new matrix that came out that gives you exactly when you'll be testing. You need to be asking your unit fitness monitor on when your next test date is. Until then, just remember that fitness is not just preparing for the test. It's a healthy lifestyle. So until then, I'll see you out on the track.
Hi everyone, my name is Jackie Ermy. I'm the Director of Psychological Health for the Wing, and I'm going to be talking to you today a little bit about suicide prevention. September is Suicide Prevention Month, and many across our nation are feeling extremely stressed, very uncertain. We're faced with financial insecurity and instability. We're feeling disconnected. We're feeling anxious. And some of us are starting to feel pretty hopeless. For some, these experiences can be associated with an increased risk for suicide. So finding healthy ways of coping will help us remain strong. So critical right now are social connectedness and caring connections. Physical distancing means we have to simply stay physically apart from people, but there's still so many ways to stay connected, especially virtually. So these can help us look out for each other, remain cohesive with each other, and can help us build connections. This is so important for us for our physical, social, spiritual, and mental well-being. And it's now more than ever vital to stay connected. So what can be risk factors when we're moving into this phase of potential hopelessness and anxiety? The slide you're going to look at is going to have some information on it. And I'm going to speak to the top risk factors. On the left-hand side of the slide have some risk factors. I'm going to touch on some ones that are additional to that too. Access to lethal means. More than 65% of military members committed suicide using a firearm. Relationship challenges. Over half of service members who completed suicide within 90 days prior to that had a failed or failing relationship. A fall from glory. About 30% of service members who died by suicide had a legal or administrative issue within 90 days leading up to the suicide. And perceived stigma. So we have the hesitancy to reach out for help. Really stops people for reaching out. So the way to combat these risk factors are to develop these protective factors that you see on the other side. And you can take a look at that, maybe snap a photo of that. So we're going to talk a little about changes that you might notice. How would you notice if these are risk factors, if these are occurring or these are happening to people, they're making their lives different? What do we notice? We notice shifts or changes in behavior or appearance. Some folks look more tired under stress. Some you notice might be less motivated. Some folks can overeat or undereat or stop eating. Some people can oversleep, undersleep, or stop sleeping. Some folks give away meaningful items and withdraw. They become angry or irritable. And you could notice an increase in drugs or alcohol usage. Those are the signs that we can notice and pick up on others. However, not everybody has such obvious signs as that. So in an effort, the next slide we have is going to talk about one of the ways we can address one of the risk factors, which is go slow. This is a campaign that is to help reduce suicide risk by putting some time in between the individual and the means of choice. Safely storing medications is key. Gun locks to deter initial immediate use. Takes a little time to take the gun lock off, might make somebody think. And removing weapons from the home. Gun locks may also still be available in our wing. Back in May, we did get a bunch from active duty, so please check with your first sergeants about availability. If we do not have any left, we will find them for you, so please ask. The next slide is going to talk about ask, care, and escort. So this is now, if you're with somebody, you're concerned about them, what do you do in the initial first few minutes? This is what you do. You simply ask them. As Colonel Pemberton mentioned in the May Commander's Call, being direct is the most important thing. Saying, are you thinking about suicide? Sometimes if we say, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Have you had any dark thoughts? Doesn't always hit that suicide note. And some folks may answer honestly and be like, no, I haven't thought of hurting myself, because they've actually thought of killing themselves, but we didn't ask that question. So don't be afraid to ask that question. The best response is a horrified, no, I would never do that. And then is a sigh of relief. Or you might get somebody that can't answer that question. Care for them by being calm and make a phone call. Stay with the person, just be with them, make a call to someone else to expand your support team in the moment. And the next slide addresses what to do a little bit more in depth. So take a picture of this slide. It's really helpful. It helps you kind of know how do I act when I'm with this person who maybe I've never had the experience before to be with somebody who's actively suicidal. It can be very scary. So prepare yourself, because it could be you one day that might be there to talk with somebody and help them choose life. At the bottom of this slide, you're going to see two hashtags. One is the hashtag Be There, which is the DoD, Department of Defense and Department of Suicide Prevention Office hashtag. And the other one is hashtag JBMDL, Connect to Protect. That hashtag is specific to the base, suicide prevention efforts, but it's also Connect to Protect, which is this year's suicide prevention hashtag as well. Anything you do or have positive words to say, if you do something that raises awareness of suicide prevention, post on your social media and add those hashtags. And finally, there are things out there that can help us. And I wanted to address as I close, with the school year starting, we're moving into fall. These can trigger a lot of memories for us and a lot more stress. This time of year is not what it was last year. And for a lot of us, it's very hard. You may not have had to make decisions about childcare, but you've seen it. I feel like we're oversaturated with stress and information. So it can still be very stressful because we're going through this. This is a very long duration, the pandemic that we're in. We're also moving into the holidays. So we're faced now more than ever in our lives with the challenge of staying meaningfully connected with others. The seasons that we're moving into may be the most difficult some of us have faced in our life. And so, many of us are experiencing stress like never before, but we don't have to go it alone because we are all in this together. Everybody can relate to somebody else right now, whether you're a student feeling very isolated at your university, whether you're a parent not knowing how to make the decision about childcare versus your job, whether you don't have a job anymore and you're struggling financially. We are all part of this team. So please reach out to some of the resources on here and don't go it alone.
Brief message on diversity and inclusion, which of course Chaplain Matina. This is our Superintendent for Religious Affairs, Master Sergeant Ramos.
Good morning.
And we're here in the wing building, and in this building, as many of you may or may not know, we've had a collection of images of Air Force personnel, and this is one of the newest ones that is going to be placed on the wall down in this hallway where the chaplain office is located. And I noticed, if you look at this regarding this issue of diversity and inclusion, there are, of course, the uniform that they're wearing. And in addition to the uniform that they're wearing, we see there's a diversity here of gender, people's height as well, but the same mission. And there's another uniform that is not seen. That's the one you see. The other uniform is the uniform that we call being human beings, the uniform of humanity. Most world religions believe that human beings are made in the image and likeness of a divine being. And as a result, each person has an inherent dignity and value that person is to be respected. Spiritual health and resiliency is about forming beliefs, values that lead us to make good choices. And part of that is respecting the dignity of each human being. And Master Sergeant Ramos, you have a unique perspective regarding being a reserve citizen airman and your civilian employment.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the team for the opportunity to speak. Let's take a walk with me, guys. In my civilian job, I am an equal employment opportunity counselor, where I work to educate, guide, and assist individuals and ensure that they treat equally and evenly based on their protected class. And most importantly, the most important thing I do is ensure a non-hostile workplace free of discrimination, so that everyone, regardless of what they look like, who they are, what they believe in, how they feel, are treated evenly in the workplace and in life. Because there might be many races on paper, but there's only one race, that's the human race. Between COVID-19 and people losing their job, people getting sick, and unfortunately people are passing away and losing their life. And then to add to that, we have this social unrest and tensions going on. Times is really tough. I just want you to know something about the chaplain office that we offer that nobody else offer. That's 100% confidential communication, privileged communication. We want to be your sanctuary to offer you the opportunity to come to us, to our chapel staff, our chapel our chaplains, and our religious fair airmen, to be able to voice how you feel, because a lot of times things are happening right now that you don't know how to talk, you don't know how to express yourself without fear of being labeled or judged or so on and so forth. We're not here for that. We're here for you. We're here to offer you that voice for you to speak and free from being judged and being labeled. Father?
So our mission, of course, in the Air Force is to fly, fight, and win. And when we get challenges, when we may be victimized because of our race, our gender, sexual orientation, whatever it may be, it's definitely a challenge. And it's like these pebbles, right, that I have in my hand. One pebble does not weigh a lot, but if I were to take many pebbles and fill this backpack, it's very difficult to carry. So as Master Sergeant Ramos just mentioned, we're here to provide that opportunity to unload those pebbles of life, those challenges. So fly, flight, and win doesn't become grounded, flight, and loss.
And if you have any questions in regards to Air Force Equal Opportunity, Diversity, and Inclusion, fortunately for us, located near our office in the Wing Building, 2217, is the Equal Opportunity Office in room 124. Thank you.
Hey Chief, do you know where I can find information about filing a voucher on DTS?
Why, yes, sir. Did you know that YouTube videos are on the 514th Air Mobility Wing app? Have you downloaded it yet?
I sure did.
Good job, sir. Thank you. Hello, Freedom Wing. Welcome to your September UTA. For your Command Chief Minute, I wanted to take just a little bit of time to introduce you to Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, also known as the SIMSAF 19, Chief Master Sergeant Joanne Bass. She is our first female Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. She's already put out her 3 focus areas, which are people, readiness, and culture. She says, and I quote, "They haven't changed much over the years, and you'll hear her talk of them often, as well as our Air Force priorities, which are build the U.S. Space Force, modernize the air and space forces we need, grow strong leaders and resilient families, and strengthen our allies and partners." I hope you take time to follow her both on Facebook and Instagram, as she does shoot out some of her priorities and information that affects the total force. I hope you have a great UTA.
Hey Freedom Wing, I hope everyone's doing well. I hope you're healthy. I hope your families are healthy. And I hope you have a great UTA. Thanks for tuning in. I just wanted to close with a few comments from this it's kind of a unique virtual commander's call, right? So our new Chief of Staff of the Air Force, we have General Goldfein has retired, and General Charles Q. Brown has taken over and taken command. If you get a chance to look at his bio, very, very impressive. I think we are in great hands as we move on to this next chapter in the life of the Air Force, right? So one of the things I want to also bring out was our flu shot that we're expecting here in the fall is probably going to be delayed, and we may not be getting it until till November time frame, right? So here's what I would encourage you to do. If you get a chance to get your flu shot through your civilian employer, or pay the money out of pocket to go get it at one of the Walgreens or CVS's or one of those establishments that give the shot, go ahead and do that. I know it's not ideal, but your health and protection is very, very important to the Chief and I, all right? Have you heard about the 514th app? So please download the app. We are trying to get as much information out to that app as possible. Phone numbers, forms if you need to download them, schedules, UTA updates, those kinds of things. It's a great app. It's available in the App Store. It's 514 AMW. September is Suicide Awareness Month, as you've already seen. I want you to watch out for your fellow airmen. That's what we do, watch out for each other. I think it was interesting that General Hyten, who's the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, came out this week in a video saying that when he was the commander of U.S. Strategic Command, he sought help. He said, I need to talk to somebody, and he made an appointment with a psychiatrist to talk to them. So that's a sign of strength, of reaching out to get help. I thought it was really interesting when he said that they offered him to come in through the back door kind of discreetly so people wouldn't see it. And he says, no, look, if I've got an illness or something and I go see the doctor, I'm coming through the front door. My mental health, physical health is just as important. So folks, reach out. We have so many resources available to you. So reach out if you need help, because we want to take care of our members of our Freedom Wing and your families. So one thing I did want to close out with, and unfortunately it's a kind of a sad thing. So we lost an airman here this last week in a tragic car accident. Senior Airman Gabriel Godfrey, in our 514th AES. Chief and I went out to the funeral just yesterday, and it's such a tragic loss. This young lady, just a beautiful young lady that had so much bright future in her potential moving forward. So that loss is really going to be felt. Our hearts are reaching out to the AE squadron as they struggle through this, and certainly Gabriel's family. We will make sure that we ensure that they know that they're part of the Freedom Wing, and we're trying to help them as best as we can get through this. So please thank your families. Take the time with your families, because as we know, life can change in an instant, all right? So you got to make every moment last with your family. So I hope everyone has a great UTA. Take care of themselves, and we'll talk to you around.
Oh yeah, Dirty Dozen.
Dang it!
I love this car.
Try not to hurt you, but I guess that's why they say
every road has a light. You gotta have Weird Al Yankovic in there.
Right. It's in the app. Okay, you gonna be yell over there and be like, it's in the app.
Psst. You got the app? You got to get the app.
What app? You know where I can find the approved...
Ma'am,
do you know where I can find the approved medication list for flyers?
Yeah, it's in the 514th app.
I'll download it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's good eats right there.
Oh, it's a frog leg.